Hey guys, how's it going? MasterBucks here. Welcome to another Premier League predictions video, but today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about some of the things and some of the topics that I didn't exactly have time to get to when I was listing out the Premier League table 1 through 20 in my previous video. Today I'm going to be talking more about individual teams, players, some of the award winners I think we'll see throughout the Premier League season, like who's going to win the Golden Boot, player of the season, one to watch, and all of that. I might also talk about, after we've seen the first week of games, maybe a couple of teams that I might have misjudged. Maybe a few teams that I thought would end up doing a little bit better than I anticipated, and maybe a couple of teams I might have underrated a little bit. So, why not start off with that then? Of course, the first week of Premier League games is over. I probably won't talk too much about the top 6 because, to be fair, the top 6 look like they are continuing on where they left off last season, the majority of which all picked up wins and all look about the same as they did last year. Except, of course, for Arsenal, who went down 2-0 to Manchester City. But let's be honest, that was pretty much expected. Unai Emery had a certain baptism of fire going up against the current reigning champions, and it's very apparent to see that he's going to need a little bit of time to really get that team ticking. He's brought in some nice names that hopefully will feature quite a fair bit. He's signed new players like Socrates, who was okay, I thought. Torreira didn't start, but it looks like he maybe will get the gig after Xhaka again was a bit disappointing. Bernd Leno didn't start in goal, which was interesting. And Petr Cech, of course, it looks like they're trying to implement this playing out from the back style of football, which I don't know if Petr Cech's the guy that you want. And he's sort of, again, had a bit of a shaky game against Man City as well, so I don't exactly think he's winning the fans over. The interesting thing for Arsenal fans is, or what I'm currently looking at, seeing and waiting and wondering if it's going to happen is, when are the Arsenal fans collectively going to turn on Emery, or if it's going to happen at all? I think everyone understands, okay, well, we lost the first game of the season against Manchester City, whatever, that's fine. You've got another pretty tough game against Chelsea. If you lose that, how does the general feeling in the camp, how does that turn? And then a couple of other games later, if you aren't picking up the results that you're expecting, if you're maybe 5, 6, 7 games into the season and things aren't going the way you're hoping they are, maybe you're not in the top 6, who knows, will Unai Emery be able to live out the season if they aren't getting up to the standard that they're hoping for now that Wenger has left? But I'm certainly keeping my eye on that. If Arsenal aren't performing throughout the season, will the fans turn on Unai Emery, and how long will it take? But getting away from the top 6 now, a couple of other teams that impressed and didn't impress. All the teams that I had pretty much nailed down for relegation, Cardiff and Huddersfield, ended up showing, they had some pretty tough starts to be fair, but Cardiff didn't exactly shine in their first Premier League game, and neither did Huddersfield, to be fair, who were dispatched pretty comfortably by Chelsea. Again, tough game for you to start, but I still almost have my doubts about Chelsea. They got a pretty good win and a pretty comfortable win against Huddersfield, but at the same time, I put Chelsea third, and I'm almost maybe a little I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable with my top 2 pick, but I was struggling to pick between Manchester United and Chelsea, who was going to go in a third. And to be honest, I'm maybe a little. I'm worried that maybe I might have overestimated Chelsea's chances this year. I don't know. Wolves versus Everton, I think, was probably the best game of the match week as well. Even though it did end in a 2-2 draw, it was still very entertaining. Ruben Neves looks class. Richarlison looks class, and he bloody better have been for the money that Everton spent on him. But he was, for now anyway, putting all doubters aside and being able to perform and sort of somewhat live up to his price tag, although we've still got a long season left to keep that up. But Wolves, I'm sure they're only just getting started, and again, I feel pretty comfortable with my mid-table predictions for them. They look like they should be able to survive and hang in the Premier League pretty comfortably. And another team I'll talk about will be my team, Newcastle. I thought that against Tottenham, we started off slow and just unfortunate to concede a goal with just that. Oh my God, 9mm. That I don't know what, since the implementation of goal line technology, what the smallest margin ever a goal has been given by, but 9mm. I mean, I already had to deal with this crap when Australia conceded that Paul Pogba goal against France in the first World Cup game. Now I've got to live again through Newcastle. I fucking hate goal line technology out of nowhere. Newcastle were able to come back and score a goal through Joselu, not the most prolific of strikers, but when the ball is put on your head that perfectly, it's just a sublime cross by Matt Ritchie, not being marked all too well. Just guides it past Lloris, too easy, although they did end up taking the lead back. And I thought for the majority of the game, Newcastle hanged and actually were going at Tottenham pretty hardly there. And I thought in the end they didn't exactly get they didn't really get what they deserved, Newcastle United. And I was concerned for the season. Pre-season was a bit shaky. Obviously, the players that we brought in, we've improved the squad barely, at all. Really not showing the ambition that a club the size of Newcastle should be showing. And again, in the black, 20, 25 million pounds once again worth of transfer net spend. So it's really disappointing once again to show that, again, the investment is not there. No fucking surprises though, but still it looks like maybe it's not going to be the total disastrous season. If we can put that sort of performance out there more often than not, hopefully if we can be a little bit more clinical, we should be fine and not finish in that 16th, 15th position that I had us in the Premier League prediction video. But I've talked a fair bit about how my opinions on certain teams have changed after just one match week. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of individual players. My prediction for one to watch, it was going to go to Callum Hudson-Odoi, and it probably has been ever since the Chelsea pre-season game that I went to in Perth in Australia when they played Perth Glory, and he just absolutely lit them up in the first half and was an absolute superstar. He looked fantastic, and in other preseason games he's looked pretty good too. Didn't get that much of a run against Huddersfield, but I'm sure he'll eventually get worked into the starting 11, hopefully, probably a little bit more. But it doesn't exactly, I don't know if he's going to be the starting guy for the entire season, it looks like. That's why, even though I've talked about Callum Hudson-Odoi quite a fair bit, I'm going to say he's obviously one to watch, but I'm going to go with another bloke by the name of James Maddison. Ever since Leicester City lost Riyad Mahrez, they've lost that certain creativity, and it looks like they're going to go to James Maddison to provide that, but in a more central role, obviously playing as an advanced midfielder. He looked okay. I'm not going to say he looked absolutely class in his game against Manchester United, but was definitely providing quite a spark for Leicester City going forward. And I think that he is definitely going to be, hopefully, the guy that is going to be able to set up blokes like Vardy, be able to get them in behind. And I think that he's got a fair bit to give. Still a relatively young lad that they brought up from, I think, Norwich, I believe it was anyway. I'm personally keeping my eye on James Maddison. I'm not saying he's going to be the next bloody, Kevin De Bruyne or anything like that, but I am saying that he looks like a pretty promising talent, and I'm interested to see how he's going to go. Another player I'll also give a real quick mention to, obviously because a lot of FPL players have been going on and on and on about this bloke, and I did see a little bit of his game against Fulham, and I got to say, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is definitely another right back to keep your eye on. There's a couple of pretty decent young fullbacks in the Premier League right now, and it looks like we've just been given another one with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I mean, he was given the task of trying to keep the championship player of the season last season, Ryan Sessegnon, quiet, and I thought he did a bloody bang-up job of it. Was getting forward as well, defended pretty nicely, and even assisted Wolfie Zaha's goal. Yeah, it's tough to pick between Hudson-Odoi, Maddison, and Wan-Bissaka. I can't exactly split the three of them, but you know what? They're all collectively getting this award. Now I'm going to make a prediction for who I think is going to win the Golden Boot, and at the moment we've only got, two or just one person leading the race at the moment, and that's Richarlison, and spoilers, no, I do not think Richarlison's going to win Golden Boot. I still think it's very hard to go past the two guys that were gunning for the award last season, and that's of course Mo Salah and Harry Kane. Liverpool look like they have only once again gotten better offensively, and attacking wise, they're just even scarier than they were last season, and they're already pretty goddamn scary as is. They've got Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino, you go and add Xherdan Shaqiri into that mix as well. It's absolutely terrifying. I mean, even bloody Daniel Sturridge came off the bench and scored with his first touch. For crying out loud, people. I think it is very, very clear that Liverpool are going to be maybe the highest scoring team in the Premier League this season, and I genuinely think that they could absolutely wipe and blast away a couple of teams. Seriously. Some of the lower level teams in the Premier League could get absolutely blitzed by Liverpool, sort of to the same extent we were seeing Manchester City winning games 6-0, 7-7-1, and something crazy numbers like that. I genuinely think those sorts of numbers for Liverpool. Hell, maybe even sometimes more than that. I'm sure at some point this season we are going to see a massive Liverpool victory. I don't know who the team is, but we'll wait and see. You get what I'm trying to say. Liverpool are going to score an awful lot of goals, and obviously the fact that they've added to their offense means that there's going to be a lot more people around to maybe pinch a few goals off Mo Salah. But I still don't think it matters. Even though they have added Shaqiri, and maybe he's going to try to take, he's going to get his numbers, and that might take away from Salah a bit. I still think with the amount of goals they will score this season that it almost won't matter. I don't exactly think Mo Salah is going to end up being the one season wonder that everyone thought maybe Harry Kane was going to end up being. I think that Mo Salah can continue it on, and I think that Mo Salah is maybe just once again going to win the Golden Boot. And to be honest, even if it's not Mo Salah, I'm not sure if I'd say that Harry Kane will end up winning it. Maybe he's my second choice pick. I'd probably say it might be another Liverpool player instead. Maybe someone like, say, Roberto Firmino. If my prediction's right about Liverpool, that they're just going to go gangbusters and score an insane amount of goals this season, then by all means it could end up being Mo Salah. It could end up being Roberto Firmino. I'm not so sure about Mane, and I'm not so sure about Shaqiri maybe leading, the goals in that category. I think it's down to either Salah or Roberto Firmino, and maybe Harry Kane's my third choice pick. I was, of course, thinking about a guy like Aguero as well in a team like Manchester City. They're going to score a bunch of goals, but I don't exactly know if Aguero was going to start every single game for Manchester City with Gabriel Jesus in the mix and everything. So I'm sticking with those three. That's my short list, if you will. As for who I think is going to win Player of the Season, I think if we're specifically talking about the PFA Player of the Season as well, Kevin De Bruyne for sure was going to win that award if Mo Salah did not have the freakish, ridiculous season that he had for Liverpool. So that's why I kind of think maybe, and Kevin De Bruyne still hasn't won the award, which astounds me because I absolutely hold him in the highest regard in this league as one of the best, if not the best midfielder in the world, let alone just in the Premier League. I have him tied with like a Luka Modric, if you will, but god damn, man, if Manchester City do end up winning the league again, like I predicted, and Liverpool, I know they're going to, again, take it up a notch, but I still think Man City are going to win. I don't expect Mo Salah, even though Liverpool have improved, I don't think Mo Salah is going to recreate the freakish season that he just had. I think he'll be good, obviously. Once again, I said that he is maybe my favourite to win the Golden Boot once again, but is he going to break his own record for most goals in the season? I'm not quite so sure. I'm still thinking, obviously, if you're going to win the Golden Boot, you've got to get something like in the mid-20s or high 20s at least. So I don't know. I feel like KDB, once again, Man City look just as strong as they did last season, but I feel like it's Kevin De Bruyne's time. You know what I mean? Like Mo Salah could very well, again, if Liverpool continue to get better and he continues to perform at the same level, then why can't he go back to back for sure? I'd have him in second place as my second most favoured person to win the title, to win that award. But I've got to give it to Kevin De Bruyne. I feel like it'd almost be unfair. He's surely going to end up getting it this season. Highest scoring team. Of course, I already mentioned this, even though I think Man City's going to win the league and they did score an insane amount of goals last season. I think Liverpool have the best attack in the Premier League. I said that they might end up blitzing certain teams, lower level teams, for crazy amounts of goals. So I genuinely think that they're going to end up getting maybe over 100 Premier League goals this season. We've done the highest scoring team. Now how about the tightest defence? Who's going to be the best defensive team in the Premier League? Obviously we know Manchester City, on top of scoring an insane amount of goals, were watertight at the back, and that's obviously why they ended up having the highest goal difference ever in a Premier League season. No surprises there. I genuinely think, again, they could be just as good at the back too, but I might end up saying that, and to be honest, this kind of depends on if Jose Mourinho sees out the entire season, but I might give best defence to Manchester United. I do think that Manchester United are going to concede the least amount of goals this season. That's what I would assume anyway, but again, it's only because of the style of football that they play, that brand of football. But again, it only comes down, in my opinion, to how long Jose Mourinho is in the job for. If he does survive the entire season, and if he doesn't, who do they replace him with? If I knew, then maybe I wouldn't go with Manchester United. But since, of course, I don't exactly have hindsight to, be able to see into the future and see what's going to happen, I'm going to say Manchester United will have the tightest defence. But it kind of leads on into the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is the sack race. Who's going to be the first manager to go? Again, I briefly spoke about this in the last episode, but I think that it's probably going to end up being Mark Hughes. Southampton ended up getting a 0-0 draw with Burnley at home, and that was a relatively even game. I don't think either side really had the upper hand for the majority of it. You could argue maybe Burnley, and you can almost argue maybe Southampton as well, but I think a lot of people would be very surprised if Mark Hughes survived the entire season at Southampton. And again, if they have that slow start, then maybe they won't waste any time letting him go. If it's not going to be Mark Hughes, then maybe a Neil Warnock. Although I'll be honest, I think Cardiff could almost do horrifically in the Premier League, and for some weird reason, I don't see Neil Warnock getting the sack. For some weird reason, I just don't know. But yeah, he could potentially be at risk of losing his job. And if it's not one of those two, then I think Jose Mourinho for sure is definitely another one. Just basically because of the way that he is, you're hearing things like Paul Pogba coming out and saying that he isn't exactly happy at Manchester United right now, and that he can't specifically say certain things about why he's not happy, otherwise he'll get fined. That's not exactly the sort of things that you want coming out of your camp, and you want that sort of environment and that atmosphere in the dressing room, because I don't know if you've noticed, but when players row with managers, more often than not, actually, I think pretty much every single time, players are undefeated in that battle. You will always see the manager go if there's a rift in the dressing room. And I think Jose Mourinho, to be honest, it's almost like he's, I'm not going to say trying to get sacked, but in some of his press conferences, he's so negative and lethargic. And do you remember when Jose Mourinho first came in and he was like, I'm not going to say bubbly or full of life or anything, but he was his character and stuff. He had a bit of an ego as well, but he was relatively upbeat. Now he's just a depressing, he's just a depressing old man, isn't he? Always complaining, always moaning. He's a very negative I don't even know if I was a player, I don't think I'd want to play for him, to be honest. If I wanted, not for an entire season anyway. So yeah, once again, Jose Mourinho might be on his way out, but I think if Manchester United keep on winning, then clearly there won't be a problem. But I think the slightest little bump in the road, and who knows, maybe if there's a better suitor out there, we could see Mourinho go as well. I think I've pretty much made all the predictions that I've wanted to. I've updated somewhat my predictions. I'm not going to change any places in the table. I'm sticking with my guns on that, even though I might have now realised I might have put a couple of teams too high and too low. How about this? I'll make one more prediction for you. That's it. I'm going to say that Harry Kane is going to score a goal in August. This right here, people, is why I have been given the name of the prediction god. Only I could say something so outlandish and yet probably end up being right. I know that Harry Kane is known around the world for a couple of things, like for example being England's best striker, being the World Cup Golden Boot winner and stuff, but let's be honest, the one thing that he is known around the world for is his inability to score goals in August. That is pretty much his legacy. Everybody knows that about him. But no, the prediction god is saying he's going to do it. It's either going to be against Fulham or it's going to be against Manchester United away. I definitely think it's most likely going to be against Fulham at Wembley, but we'll wait and see. If not, my prediction powers, they're a little they're like the Force, it's cloudy, it's dark, it's difficult to read at times. Harry Kane, you better not let yourself down, and more importantly, you better not let me down. The prediction god has spoken. We will see what happens, but that will do it for me. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And until the next video, my name is the MasterBucks. Have a good one.